Cuidado, el tren está llegando.
Tras el Tren de Aragua. El Tren de Aragua.
Que se llama el Tren de Aragua.
How are two NYPD officers getting connected to a palatial prison in Venezuela that had its own zoo, swimming pools, luxury restaurants, and political intrigue across South America, not to mention other heinous acts in Miami and New York itself?
The NYPD says Tren de Aragua has been making it over the border with the migrant influx.
The answer is Tren de Aragua, the most powerful criminal group in Venezuela.
Police are trying to tackle the rapidly escalating violent crime among Venezuelan gang members in the city who have gotten into New York.
The NYPD says these are suspected members of the ruthless Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, which has been infiltrating the U.S. for the last 2 years.
They've been spreading across South America for a decade, and now, according to the teenage member charged in the crime against two New York officers, they've infiltrated the U.S. via the migrant crisis. And according to him, they're under orders from the leaders to smuggle bang-bangs into those New York migrant shelters.
Now, he made a shocking confession to authorities, saying that he is a member of the vicious Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, and that gang is smuggling firearms into migrant shelters. But the most shocking claim, the gang has been smuggling guns into city-run shelters.
Tren de Aragua members are smuggling firearms into city shelters inside food delivery packages. That way they'll have to go through the metal detector.
Another set, as of yet unsolved, crimes striking fear into New York City are reminiscent of wild scenes in Caracas, Venezuela. Stick-up men robbing tables full of patrons while they dine at upscale restaurants. Give me the loot, taking watches, wallets, and jewelry.
The thieves are demanding watches, wallets, and cell phones.
Robbery is not on the menu here at Marlowe and Sons in Williamsburg, but that's exactly what some outdoor diners got. Take a closer look. Surveillance video shows a man toting a gun, allegedly stealing a $100,000 watch. Police believe this could be part of a bigger pattern. The most recent incident happened here, also in Williamsburg, at Birds of a Feather about a week ago. This time, two men held up customers dining inside of the restaurant.
The two crimes that put them in the spotlight, though, one was at the beginning of June, where cops in Queens saw a guy riding a moped the wrong way down the street. They tried to pull him over, and he hit one in the leg, and one had a bulletproof vest on, which probably saved him. And they grabbed him, and this is the kid that went to court.
The suspect confessing to police that he's a member of the notorious Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. According to audio recordings read by prosecutors, Mata claims he was recruited by a cousin to join the gang to do robberies.
And then more recently, just about a week or two ago, at Times Square, the police told some guys to get out of the way. I guess they were hanging out in front of their migrant shelter right on Times Square and blocking patrons, harassing people. They end up getting into a brawl, and these guys were kicking and jumping on the police to let the police had grabbed hold of one guy. They jumped on him, his buddies, supposedly some of them associated with El Tren de Aragua, and he got away. And they just now got him in custody.
Now there's a fear looming that the man involved with that attack could avoid being brought to justice.
And an even more sinister crime down in Miami, where they brand escorts with some type of symbol to show that they're owned by El Tren de Aragua.
Venezuelan crime is making its way right here to the United States. Police say one criminal gang that has been causing havoc throughout Latin America is now in South Florida.
Two escorts lured a Venezuelan guy, an ex-cop, to a hotel. After they were done in the room, he comes downstairs, and four guys grab him, snatch him in the car, make him take them back to his house. They kick the door, put the gun to his roommate, and they get the guy's safe, where supposedly he had a bunch of gold, and they steal his safe. The guy ends up being unalive because he couldn't breathe. and they threatened the roommate and say we're part of El Tren de Aragua, so, you know, to frighten him so he wouldn't contact the police, which of course he did. So this sounds like this crime ties back to Venezuela. How would they know an ex-Venezuelan cop had gold in his safe? Now, South Florida has a lot of Venezuelans that long predate this current migrant situation. They've been coming over here for a long time. A lot of them have money.
Venezuela's largest criminal organization is now operating inside the United States in cities like Chicago and Miami. Sources telling News Nation that known members from a Venezuelan prison gang named Tren de Aragua have joined the millions of Venezuelans leaving the country on the way.
Venezuela used to be the richest country in South America, and it has more oil reserves than even Kuwait or Saudi Arabia, but obviously the country's a mess. So the richer people have been coming to the U.S. for quite some time. How they knew to target this guy, I don't know. This guy is charged in the homicide of the ex-Venezuelan cop in Miami, and he's supposedly a Tren de Aragua member, and he hasn't given up his co-conspirators, and I don't even think they know who the escorts are.
Reporting that an alleged member and a Venezuelan migrant is now being charged with murder of a retired Venezuelan police officer in South Florida.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who ran for president, you might remember, recently sent a letter to President Biden asking him to designate El Tren de Aragua a transnational criminal group, so MS-13 I think is the only kind of street gang type thing. Of course, Tren's not a street gang. El Tren de Aragua is a gang that was born out of the prison system, much like California's own Mexican mafia. So starting around 2006, there was a series of very extreme prison uprisings. Lots of people died. The Venezuelan government had to send in a lot of military. Even at that, they had to fight pitched battles. I think one of these prisons, it took them a month to take back over. So President Hugo Cesar Chavez, the famous leftist that died some years back, seems like he kind of cut a deal with certain groups. So the PRANA system arose, and P-R-A-N-A in Spanish is an acronym for Natural Born Double Prison Killer. And this symbolizes the strongest inmates in prison, and one of the biggest prisons was Tocorón Prison in Aguirre province, and that's where El Tren, the train of Aguirre, so like a running train that can't be stopped. El Tren de Aragua arose in the Tocorón prison. You might have seen Tocorón in like National Geographic. This is the prison where they let the cameraman in and they show swimming pools. Tocorón prison had a small zoo. There were multiple fine dining restaurants, and there were people right by the gate selling cocaine for $2 a gram and crack for $4 a gram.
The group had used the facility as their headquarters, building a disco, a swimming pool, and even a zoo, all inside the detention facility.
Back in September, the government took back control of it. They even had Bitcoin mining machines in the prison. So this is where El Tren de Aragua arose. El Niño Guerrero was the PRANA, the strongest inmate there. He's, of course, wanted. I think his sentence might have expired in 2019, and he's wanted. And actually, one of the other founders of El Tren was just arrested yesterday. I wonder what that means. So if you saw one of those prison shows in the Venezuelan prison, you might be familiar with the term La Causa, the cause. And a son of a prominent Venezuelan family did a documentary called La Causa. What La Causa just means, the cause, that's the money every inmate in the prison has to pay. So Tocorón prison had up to 7,000 inmates, a lot of them paying an average of $8 a month, so that's like $50,000 a month or something, just in fees to live in the prison. And then of course, the PRANA and the gangs are making money off the restaurants and selling drugs and all that. So in the prison alone, they're probably making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. And from their base in the prison, they started to do stuff to put pressure more so on gangs out in the world. Because to go back to our Mexican mafia metaphor or analogy, whatever you're doing out in the street, if you're committing crime, you're going to end up in jail. And if there's someone in jail that has power, they can put pressure on the streets. So what El Tren de Aragua really is kind of an elite gang that puts pressure on people in prison. So it has all these criminal groups under its umbrella: car thieves, prostitutes, drug dealers, robbers, scammers. Venezuela has been had one of the highest murder rates every year. Might have calmed down a little bit for, I don't know, 15, 20 years now. Well, maybe 15 years. So lots of very violent people there. And there's I guess he must be of Lebanese descent.
Hezbollah's man in South America, a former vice president, a government minister, and a Hezbollah ambassador. Tarek El Aissami is the current Minister of Industry and Production in Nicolas Maduro's government in Venezuela.
Tarek El Aissami, he was the governor of Aragua State right when Chavez was making the deals with the prisoners to let them have more control over the prison. Well, also Tarek El Aissami was the governor of the state where that Tocorón Prison was at, where El Tren was born. Not a coincidence. He's also the one that nationalized the Venezuelan police, which is one of the primary reasons crime started going up. He took control of the police away from local. So imagine if there was no Kansas City police. It was just only feds. Ripe for a lot more corruption and a lot less responsive to the situation on the ground. So El Tren de Aragua had an ally in the governor of the state they were at. Tarek El Aissami has been under indictment in the United States for 6 or 7 years for dope smuggling as part of something called the Cartel of the Suns. Government and military in Venezuela facilitating the movement of massive cocaine through the country, mostly into Europe, but some in the United States. And this governor of the state that the prison that El Tren started in, he's under indictment along with, guess who? President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro.
The Department of Justice is announcing the unsealing of a superseding indictment filed in the Southern District of New York against 4 defendants, including Nicolas Maduro,
who currently has a $15 million wanted bounty on him by the U.S. government. Did you know that? He has as much of a bounty on him as El Mayo, supposedly the #1 guy in Mexico. So literally Venezuela is being run by a wanted narco, the president. So this is the place where these migrants are coming from, and where this new gang, at least on our soil, that's doing some serious crimes, is coming from this country that's extremely violent, extremely corrupt, president under indictment for narco trafficking. El Tren has been moving to all the country. Well, El Tren has been moving to many countries and spreading out. Everyone's trying to leave Venezuela, including, if you ain't in prison, you're probably trying to get out of Venezuela. It's unstable. The money's worth nothing. So they're popping up in Bolivia, Colombia, Peru, and Chile, which is the richest country in South America. They're about to put a bunch of them on trial. The judges are so frightened, they've taken the names of the judges in the case out of the public record. So El Tren de Aragua is impacting South America with their violence. And they're just now starting here in the United States. A gang born in prison, born out of corruption, not really afraid of anything. And they're accused of a very serious, and one of them is accused of something interesting right now in Chile. There was an attempted overthrow of President Nicolas Maduro a few years back in Venezuela. It failed, and one of the military guys that was a leader of that, he was just found stuffed in a suitcase, not alive, under a building in Santiago, the capital of Chile, and an El Tren de Aragua member is charged with it. Is it possible that through their ties to corrupt Venezuelan military officials that the president had his tentacles out to anybody that could bump off these people that tried to get him out of power, and they used a Tren de Aragua member? Certainly could be. if they're being used as assassins for people that are against the current government of Venezuela, well, now that they're in the United States, there's certainly many Venezuelans that are, in fact, most of the established Venezuelans in the U.S. are against the current president. Might they start being used to bump off prominent members of Venezuelan society in the United States? Who knows? Could be already happening.
First here at 5 o'clock, members of a violent Venezuelan gang have made their way into the U.S. and here to Chicago.
As El Tren de Aragua grows in the United States, moving in with the migrants established in Miami, New York, they popped up in Chicago. As all this is going on, something's going on behind the scenes back in Venezuela. There seems to be a crackdown there. Chief Protector Tariq al-Assami, the corrupt ex-governor who then got made part of Nicolas Maduro's cabinet and who was under indictment with Maduro for dope dealing in the United States, he's been taken into custody in Venezuela for stealing oil money.
PDVSA Tarek el-Aissami por su supuesta participación en la trama de corrupción.
Now, is this just something to make things look good? It's hard to know in those kind of countries with all those many layers of corruption. But while Niño Guerrero, the most infamous founder of El Tren de Aragua, is still wanted, one of their founders was arrested just yesterday. And they're getting ready to go on trial in different countries around South America. And their headquarters and founding place, El Tocorón Prison, a few months back, well, 9 months back now, back in September, where this might have been the start of the beginning of something changing or declining of their power, at least in Venezuela. 11,000 military had to go into that Tocorón prison and break it up.
We have total control of this prison, and we have completely dismantled the self-proclaimed former Tren de Aragua.
It's unclear where all the inmates went. Is it a cover-up? Could very well be. Something has changed in the landscape for El Tren de Aragua down there, but that doesn't portend well for us in the United States, because if you have some people already very violent, used to at the police, because that's what goes on in Venezuela. In fact, the defense attorney in the case up there in New York with that teenager on the moped who bucked at the police, he said, well, my client in Venezuela, they're used to shooting at the police because the police kill people. Well, that's quite a defense, but it shows you the mentality. And then, of course, that attack in Times Square. One thing about American criminals, they generally know to be careful what they do with the police, because the United States government has a tremendous amount of resources. So places in the U.S. can get pretty wild, but as long as you don't mess with the police, because there's unlimited money ultimately from some government agency to come and get you in America. But El Tren de Aragua is not used to that, and they may have to learn it the hard way. And in the meantime, seems like they're doing some pretty serious crimes in multiple cities and states across America. They are one story in the migrant crisis.
Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua has been making headlines across the country as law enforcement agencies have been reporting an increase in crimes that they say are being committed by the gang.
News Nation's Jorge Ventura has been looking through new intel documents sent to Border Patrol agents, warning them about the expansion of Tren de Aragua here on the border and in new states like Virginia and Tennessee.
Now, we already know that Tren de Aragua, or TDA, has spread across New York City. It's recruited in the migrant shelters there, where it's also set up gun smuggling rings. It's created snatch and grab moped robbery gangs. It has a youth crew and is wreaking havoc across the city, even shooting an NYPD cop and assaulting others. Now, most of the 7 individuals who were caught in this apartment in the Bronx actually had significant rap sheets and warrants out for the arrests after they had committed, allegedly, multiple crimes in the United States after crossing the southern border illegally.